You're here for. The update reportedly adds 230 new symbols. Among those, you have things like the hatchet juice box.
Okay, it doesn't look like there's anybody on yet, but like the last time I did a sewing stream.
But the emoji that has gotten the most attention and praise has been the pinching hand emoji.
So the last time I did a live sewing stream, I was just watching YouTube videos, and
because it appears that many women on the internet have labeled this the international response to the unsolicited dick pic. But that said, it's not going to be in your arsenal anytime soon.
I was just watching videos and making comments on occasions.
Until March 5th, with reports also adding that if you're on Android, you probably won't get it until August, or if you're on iOS, probably not until October or November. So yeah, that was a thing. Then transitioning to a quickie that in no way relates to the previous story, we've seen that Jake Paul wants to.
If I catch what anybody's saying, I'll try to respond.
And honestly, PR stunt or not, I think this is the right move for Jake Paul. I remember previously he challenged Chris Brown to a fight, who fan of Chris Brown for his personal choices in life, but Jake Paul would just get destroyed. Right? Just because you don't like someone doesn't mean you deny the reality of the situation. Jake Paul may have won his last fight, but a lot of people remember that he called that he would get that first round knockout. But what ended up happening is he had that bloody face from a guy that really didn't know how to box. But that said, if this actually happens, smart move on both of these guys for capitalizing on the I really hope both of these guys get hurt in a fight market. Because while I'm sure there are a lot of people like, I hope person A beats up person B and that's it, I think the larger market for these two specifically are the I don't like either of these, which is kind of fantastic for them because it's making money off of the people that hate you. Although the people that hit that specific demographic are probably the most likely to pirate the content and even brag about it. Yeah, that was a thing as well. And the final bit of these quickie news pieces is that after a ton of conjecture, it is confirmed the Oscars will officially not have a host this year, because it appears that the best way to confirm that your host pass will not come and bite everyone in the ass is to just not have a host because everyone has a history. Instead, according to reports, it's just going to be a ton of celebrities hitting the stage at different points, with the Academy announcing this week that at the very least, these stars will be on the stage. Yeah, not the first time this has happened, but definitely given.
Okay, so this thing with the Oscars, goddamn, of course I gotta have taffy in my face. So it's this Kevin Hart thing, and, you know, I'm really at a point where I'm siding with Kevin Hart. Like, I absolutely understand why people are upset. And I absolutely agree that he should not have said it. That, you know, it was a dumb joke then, it's a dumb joke now. It's no more or less dumb at any one point in time, but at the same time, he fucking apologized. There's only so much that a single person can do to admit that they were at fault, which he has done. He has done that. You know, I saw him on Colbert, Late Show. Or is it Late Night? I don't know. It's the one with Colbert. The one that he took over after Letterman retired. Oh, God, I remember when Johnny Carson was on The Tonight Show. I remember the episode where he retired. My mother let me stay up late and watch it. And granted, I was about, 8, 9 years old? Something like that. It was before the divorce. I know that much. So yeah, it was before the divorce, and then what happened? But yeah, that's really showing my age, because I think Leno has retired as well, and Leno took over for Carson from The Tonight Show. Though I think originally it was Steve Allen hosted The Tonight Show, or am I thinking of somebody else completely? But it's just somebody who's been around. Excuse me, about as long as Steve Allen. Steve Allen is he still around? Oh. Who knows? But yeah, it's like, I don't know. I like Kevin Hart. I do. I think he's funny. I mean, I'm not going to, stan him or anything, but, there's only so much that somebody can do to admit that they were in the wrong. And, he seems like he's just so fed up with shit right now. Like, he admits that he was in the wrong, and I don't blame him for seeming testy about it. I mean, yeah, technically, oh, well, you don't know what's in his heart. Maybe he really is that. I mean, like, yeah, sure, maybe. And, maybe, you're only pointing this out for some semblance of internet brownie points and not because it's a principle you yourself hold. I mean, yeah, like anything can mean anything. Like anybody can be hiding their intentions from you. But, and I'm not saying go along to get along, with this Kevin Hart thing, but at the same time, it's like, well, I mean, like Iggy Azalea, like 100 years ago, well, in internet time anyway. Oh God, what was that? 10 years ago, something like that. She, I don't even remember what the hell she was apologizing for, but her career basically ended, and I mean, she wasn't a great rapper to begin with, so hopefully it was more the fact that she's just not very good than all of this, but people still bring that up as if it matters at this point anymore. I don't know. There's just something, and you know, as I've said before, I am fairly far left, even compared to a lot of my friends, especially compared to a couple of my friends who are a bit more on the moderate libertarian end of things. I don't think I know any like uh anybody I consider, uh like especially far right by, national standards. I know JC considers himself, right wing, but I'm like, have you seen some of the people in this country? You're far more moderate than a lot of people. So, yeah, if we're like doing it on a curve, he's fairly moderate. But, for Ann Arbor, yeah, I'll agree he's fairly far right. But still, it's like, there's just like only so much that the poor man can deal with. Oh, it looks like somebody's on. Yeah, there's only so much that Kevin Hart can be expected to deal with. Like, just let the funny man tell his jokes.
Everything that has come to this conclusion is notable. And then let's talk about huge news around the Catholic Church and Pope Francis.
Oh,
if you
dear.
haven't happened to see it, there's been a lot of coverage of Pope Francis' trip to the United Arab Emirates over the last few days.
There's a lot of
for this
coverage
is
of
just the trip
Pope
itself.
Francis
It's
in
historic,
general.
as it marks the first time that a pontiff of the Roman Catholic Church has visited the Arabian Peninsula while in their position as Pope. But the thing is, the biggest story from the Pope's trip actually comes from his flight returning home. Reportedly, while speaking to a reporter on the plane yesterday, Pope Francis acknowledged the sexual abuse of nuns by priests and bishops for the first time ever. According to the report, saying it is true. It's not that everyone does this, but there have been priests and bishops who have. Adding, I think it is still going on because something does not stop just because you have become aware of it. Should it be done? Yes.
Son of a bitch.
Yes, but it is a path that we have already begun. The Pope also saying that some clerics have actually already been suspended for their abuse of nuns, but he argued that the mistreatment of women is a cultural problem and is not limited to just the church. No,
fuck yes! Oh God, I love Pope Francis as a long lapsed Catholic and pagan. I love Pope Francis. I love Pope Francis as much as anybody who is not a Catholic can. He's still Catholic, so he and I are not going to see eye to eye on so many things, but he's probably not just the first, but also the last Jesuit Pope. And I say this because Jesuits, they're an order that has become very much about social justice and righting the wrongs of the past and standing up for the lowest rungs of the socio political ladder, and they've done a lot of work with for prisoners' rights and getting people exonerated in various parts. A lot of Jesuits go into law as part of their calling. So yeah, I would not be surprised if he was indeed the last, not just the first, but the last Jesuit Pope, because he's probably the best Pope I'm going to see in my lifetime, honestly. I would be surprised if the next one is, significantly better than he is.
considered second-class citizens in many parts of the world, and stating, "I dare say that humanity hasn't matured." He also saw Pope Francis praise the efforts of his predecessor, Pope Benedict, to take actions against these abuses, specifically referencing one order of nuns in France where several nuns have been abused by priests. Pope Benedict, who was a cardinal and head of the Vatican's doctrinal office at the time, had tried to take action but was stopped by Vatican insiders. But still, Pope Francis applauded his efforts, stating, "Pope Benedict had the courage to dissolve a female congregation which was at a certain level because the slavery of women had entered it. Slavery even to the point of sexual slavery on the part of clerics or the founder." Now, the Pope gave this unprecedented response to a reporter asked him about an article published in the Vatican newspaper that detailed reports of sexual abuse by clerics.
Yeah, in case you're oh crap, I wish I could tell who was on right now, but if you were watching last month, okay, it was about 3 weeks ago now. I haven't done any more sewing on the chartreuse jacket since that time. I've been tempted to. I've been really tempted to, but
forced abortions and children who aren't recognized by priests. The condition of oppression of women in the church will never change. You have the sexual abuse of nuns resulting in pregnancy and forced abortions and children without fathers. And the article states that this is not a new problem, but it's been going on for years. Specifically noting that in the 1990s, reports of priests sexually abusing nuns in Africa were filed to the Vatican. A big part of that was because there was an increase in sexual abuse during the AIDS crisis when priests in Africa turned to nuns for sex because they were considered safe. And in 1998, History even wrote a report and cited a case in Malawi where priests impregnated 29 sisters in one congregation. And when the sisters reported this to the archbishop, they were all dismissed. But recently, more nuns have been encouraged by the Me Too movement to speak out against the abuse they faced. And so this last November, we saw the International Union of Superiors General, which represents more than 500,000 Catholic nuns, urge its members to report abuse to law enforcement. But still, many nuns have not reported the abuse they experience or have experienced out of fear of retaliation. It's not surprising. I mean, last year, there was a bishop in India who was arrested after a nun accused him of repeatedly raping her between 2014 to 2016. That bishop faces trial this year, but many priests celebrated when the bishop was released on bail. And there was that high-profile case in Chile where the Vatican is involved in ongoing investigations and reports that priests abuse nuns. This story first came out when half a dozen nuns from the congregation went on public national television to share their stories of abuse by priests and how the superiors did nothing to stop it. Nuns at the order in Chile, they have since said that the women who came forward were removed from the order. And in July, we saw the Associated Press publish an investigation that found cases of abuse of nuns in Europe, Asia, Africa, and South America, with the AP also reporting that the Vatican had not adequately punished offenders or supported victims. Right? A Vatican official said it is up to local church leaders to sanction priests who sexually abuse sisters, but that often such crimes go unpunished both in civil and canonical courts. Continuing, the Catholic Church has no clear measures in place to investigate and punish bishops who themselves abuse or allow abusers to remain in their ranks, a legal loophole that has recently been highlighted. And so that brings us to the question of, well, what is actually being done about this abuse? And unfortunately, the answer is not very much. Now, the article published in Women Church World last week asserted that Pope Francis's understanding of abuse can be of some help in understanding how this abuse comes about. But it also argues that unchecked clerical power is the root of the problem. And so as far as what happens next, that's a really big question mark. According to the Washington Post, he is due to host a gathering of bishops and cardinals in 2 weeks to address the broader global issue of clergy sexual abuse. This including, largely for the first time, adult victims and accountability for those at the top of the church who mismanage and cover it up. We also saw Francis write in a letter to U.S. bishops last month, the church's credibility has been seriously undercut and diminished by these sins and crimes, but even more by the efforts made to deny or conceal them. Adding this has led to a growing sense of uncertainty, distrust, and vulnerability among the faithful. But at the same time, it's also important to note that a lot of people have still been criticizing Pope Francis for how he handled abuse in the past. For example, in January 2018, he dismissed accusations that Chilean Bishop Juan Barros had covered up sexual abuse committed by a priest named Fernando Cardima. Pope Francis at that time saying there is not one shred of proof against him. It's all calumny. Is that clear? Although he did later apologize and dispatch investigators to Chile, but he didn't condemn Barros. But then in June, the Vatican announced that Pope Francis had accepted Barros' resignation, though the investigations into the case continued. But yeah, for now, that is where the story ends. It will be very interesting to see what happens, especially coming from Pope Francis. Yeah, obviously with this story, I'd love to know your thoughts. Also, were you surprised by this news? I know that a lot of headlines regarding controversy with the Catholic Church involved young boys, obviously. In the past few years, there have been multiple stories where we talked about the legal issues in the United States. Also, do you think that there can be accountability and change, or no, do you have no faith in that? But from that, I want to share some stuff I love today, and today in Awesome brought to you by fullsail.edu/Phil. If you don't know, many people from the nation and even past employees of mine have been Full Sail graduates. Also out in the world, you've had Full Sail grads help engineer Kendrick Lamar's last record, animate Steven Spielberg's latest movie, design the latest Call of Duty game. With Full Sail specializing in entertainment, media, technology, and the arts. And at Full Sail, you'll get the knowledge and the hands-on experience, but you'll also get the ability to connect with successful grads and students to build your network. And at Full Sail, you can study online, you get that hands-on experience, you can attend the Florida campus, and best of all, they offer accelerated degree programs. But main point, if you want more information, be sure to head over to
You can attend their Florida campus. On the other hand, it is in Florida.
Awesome today is kind of a notification, but also a thank you. Thank you to all you beautiful bastards who shared the hell out of the last Extra Morning News deep dive. You helped it trend. Also, there are people asking me if we somehow put that Wikipedia link underneath our video. We did not. It's actually a YouTube feature that's out of our hands. It happens on topics where there's a lot of like conspiracy theories and misinformation about the topic. But yeah, thanks to the people that are excited about that content, sharing that content. We love being able to dive deeper and deeper into news kind of like that. And also, as kind of a notification, remember tomorrow is Thursday, and on Thursday mornings, you're getting another Extra Morning News deep dive. And we'll just say it's on a very hot topic. Then something I do from time to time when I find something to be awesome, I recommend it to others. For example, I will forever recommend and repeat. If you have not watched Train to Busan, I highly recommend you watch it. It's on Netflix. But today, I one have to give a shout out to Respawn, and two just have to recommend Apex Legends. I have not truly been a fan of any battle royale game that I've ever gotten my hands on. And keep in mind, I've only played it 3 to 4 hours. I loved every minute of it. It's free. It's on PC, Xbox One, PS4. I really couldn't recommend it more. Then Netflix gave us 13 stories with Hassan Minaj. You had Red Bull giving us kayaking India's most insane rivers. You got the teaser trailer for the case against Anand Syed. We had TED giving us why you should read Shakespeare's The Tempest. We got the official trailer for The Sun Is Also a Star. And if you want to see the full versions of everything I just shared, The Secret.
Why read The Tempest when I've got the Derek Jarman film version?
Description down below. And then we should definitely talk about Donald
Trump's.
Trump's
Toya Wilcox
and
Jack Burkett, aka the Incredible Orlando.
The government shut down, but long story short, it happened yesterday. And a big thing to keep in mind is that President Trump spoke for almost 90 minutes, touting what he found to be the triumphs of his administration, announcing future plans, reiterating many of his talking points we've heard over the course of his presidency, and it's too much to completely cover on all points. In addition to what we're going to be talking about today, I'll try to provide as many links as possible from as many different places as possible down below. So with that said, I mean, we ended up kind of seeing in part what we expect from a president who ended up losing the House during his term. We saw a call for unity.
Millions of our fellow citizens are watching us.
Trump not only, like, the Republican Party didn't just lose the House during his term, but you know, there's a majority of women for the first time ever. But he's taking credit for that shit.
A Republican agenda or a Democrat agenda. It's the agenda of the American people.
Right? We saw similar things from Obama, Bush, and Clinton, although they did it in their own different ways. But Donald Trump also didn't just use this as kind of a tactic and angle regarding promotion of new legislation. He also tried to use this as a way to defend himself in a way that, I mean, some people have referred to him as pulling a Nixon. And here are the parts that are missing there.
An economic miracle is taking place in the United States, and the only thing that can stop it are foolish wars, politics, or ridiculous partisan investigations. If there is going to be peace and legislation, there cannot be war and investigation. It just doesn't work that way. We must be united at home to defeat our adversaries abroad.
Side note, I personally think that Donald Trump should only speak in rhymes from now on. If you want legislation, there can be no investigation. If you want jobs, there can be no mobs. If you rhyme, it's a good time. But stupid jokes aside, it appears that he's talking about the ongoing special counsel investigation, also possibly some of the others that might be popping up soon. And the reason you have some people calling this pulling a Nixon is because Nixon actually did the same thing the year he resigned. Then let's see, he also talked about the economy. Specifically, he cited the creation of 5.3 million new jobs, rising wages, the lowest unemployment rate since 1969, an all-time low in unemployment for minority groups and those with disabilities, the lifting of 5 million Americans off food stamps, and the creation of 304,000 jobs in January of 2019. Well, However, you have experts pointing out that this impressive economic growth has actually been a trend that precedes the Trump administration,
Yeah.
as the economy has flourished since the recession ended back in 2009, with many also claiming that the numbers coming from President Trump are being inflated, such as the number of new jobs created, which is actually 4.9 million, not 5.3, but it's still a lot of jobs. Trump attributed this growth to economic policies under his administration, such as tax cuts, the doubling of the child tax credit, deregulation, the ending of the estate tax for small businesses, and the elimination of the Obamacare individual mandate penalty, with Trump then claiming that due to these tax and regulatory changes, companies are returning to the United States. Additionally, another economic success Trump took credit for was the United States being the #1 producer of all oil and natural gas worldwide. However, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, the United States has actually been the top producer of oil and natural gas since 2011. We also saw President Trump discuss his recently imposed tariffs on $250 billion of Chinese goods, asserting that he and Chinese President Xi are working on a new trade deal to, quote,
include real structural change to end unfair trade practices, reduce our chronic trade deficit, and protect American jobs.
However, at the same time, you have many economists claiming that China is not suffering from these increased tariffs, instead saying the price is actually being paid by American companies importing Chinese products. Additionally, China retaliated with $110 billion of tariffs on U.S. goods. And regarding this, the effects of these tariffs are far-reaching, and we'll really have to wait and see what this new trade deal between the two look like. And lastly, on the economy, he praised the signing of the USMCA trade deal between the United States, Mexico, and Canada, urging Democrats and Republicans to approve this deal. Then, of course, not a surprise, the president talked about immigration, which has been one of his hardline points. The president here, of course, talking about the wall once again, saying that America needs this southern border wall, which in the past he has specifically requested $5.7 billion in funding for. Although, given what we've seen in the past, there's no reason to think that this is going to change any Democrats' mind. Right now, it doesn't appear that Democrats believe that there is a crisis at the border, and they're adamant that a wall is not a reasonable solution, as many illegal immigrants enter through legal ports of entry or by plane. And regarding support or opposition to the wall, a recent Gallup poll from this week shows that 60% of Americans oppose the wall. So even if it wasn't
the majority of undocumented immigrants are people who overstay their visa.
There's no reason for them to flip on this. Also, the president claimed that human traffickers smuggle thousands of young girls into the United States to sell them into prostitution and modern slavery. However, despite the president saying this, the Alliance to End Slavery and Trafficking wrote in a letter to Congress that these victims primarily enter the United States on temporary visas, and then after entering that way, they are then exploited with the threat of deportation. With the organization also saying they strongly condemn President Trump's continued rhetoric attempting to justify a southern border wall in order to stop human trafficking, adding this misinformation is dangerous and destructive. And even going on to say this is not a foreign issue, saying many trafficking victims are U.S. citizens. Then, let's see, we had the topic of healthcare come up. And here he touched on everything from drug prices, HIV, abortion, funding cancer research, and more. Definitely one of his biggest statements here was regarding HIV.
My budget will ask Democrats and Republicans to make the needed commitment to eliminate the HIV epidemic in the United States within 10 years. We have made incredible strides.
And so here the president is laying out a new strategy to end HIV transmission by 2030. And the thing is, there's actually real evidence that the U.S. can end HIV outbreaks. In fact, the World Health Organization has set the same goal of ending HIV transmission mostly by making medicine and prevention more available. But also on that note, experts have pointed out that it's worth noting that Trump's 2019 budget actually slashed more than $100 million from AIDS programs. For cancer research, he asked for an increase to the budget of $500 million over 10 years, which I will say I think any increase is good. It is admirable. We've also had people saying that it is inadequate. There is even a report from Politico today that in a closed-door meeting, Nancy Pelosi said $500 million over 10 years? Are you kidding me? Who gave him that figure? It's like the cost of his protection of his Mar-a-Lago or something. But that said, the last thing regarding healthcare, Trump mentioned pre-existing conditions, saying he supported keeping protection. But to the contrary, his Department of Justice has refused to defend pre-existing conditions, and a court challenge that seeks to remove them. Then one of the most polarizing topics of the night was abortion. Trump again reiterating a promise he made as a candidate in 2016 to push for a federal bill to ban any abortions after 20 weeks of pregnancy. And here we saw Trump try to contrast his position by pointing out an incident in New York.
Lawmakers in New York cheered with delight upon the passage of legislation that would allow a baby to be ripped from the mother's womb moments from birth.
And here's the thing, I understand this is an immensely controversial issue, that people have the strongest of feelings on this topic. But I definitely wanted to fact check this claim because it's a big claim. When looking into it, New York State's new abortion law in no way actually allows such a scenario to happen. That law only allows abortions up to term if it's, quote, necessary to protect the mother's life or health and in absence of fetal viability. And so what that means is that abortion would only be allowed when the fetus is definitely not going to survive birth or the remainder of the pregnancy, and or it's believed that the mother will die. Right, so this picture that the president is painting is not what this legislation is about or attempting to do or does.
Yeah.
That said, I think people are completely within their right to have whatever feelings they want regarding this topic and the specific scenarios, but I think it's incredibly important that people understand the facts of the situation and scenario. But that said, the last thing we'll discuss that Trump talked about, we saw Donald Trump announce plans to implement paid family leave, which prompted cheering from a lot of attendees.
I am also proud to be the first president to include in my budget a plan for nationwide paid family leave so that every new parent has the chance to bond with their newborn child.
The thing is, without this change, the United States is the only developed country in the world with no federally mandated paid family leave. That's a really simple one. That is a thing that I love to see. It's a thing that I love to hear, and it's a thing that I really want to see in our country. It's important to get that time to recover from the birth, both from giving it as well as just the chaos it brings to your life, and really giving you that time to bond with the child, get things somewhat stable before jumping back in. I think it's huge. But with that said, like I said earlier, for the sake of time, I'm only hitting on some of what was talked about. I'm going to try to make sure that we include other links and resources down below. But with all of that said, I would love to know your thoughts. If you watched it, or even if you're just consuming it from this, what were your thoughts watching it? I know there are going to be people saying, "Why didn't you talk about when all the women stood up and they cheered about women in the workforce?" A big part of this was fact checking and policy, and even that we could only touch on somewhat. But yeah, of course, let me know what you're thinking, and that's where we're going to end today's show. And remember, if you like this video, you like the way that we jump into the news, let us know. Hit that like button. Also, if you're new here, you want more of these daily videos, be sure to hit subscribe, maybe ring that bell to turn on notifications. But with that said, of course, as always, my name's Philip DeFranco. You've just been filled in. I love yo faces, and I'll see you tomorrow. Twice.
I love
Hey everyone,
DeFranco.
so this is potentially going to be a little bit of a shorter video than I normally do, not quite as in-depth, but today we are looking at Girl Defined again. And I don't want to become one of those channels that just like stalks everything Girl Defined do and like picks them apart, because, you know, I'm sure somewhere in amongst all their really horrible, harmful, dangerous, insulting content, they do have some good intentions in there, and they do
suppose.
try. But today I want to talk about one part specifically of their latest video. It was a Q&A video where they answered 4 questions sent in by their viewers, and they were, you know, going on about how they're the big questions and they can't go in depth with them. But they said this one thing, or rather they didn't say something, and it really got to me. It's one of those things that I was just like, what they're doing here is so harmful and so dangerous, and it's going to hurt so many people. I can't not speak about it, you know? So to give you a very quick overview before we get into like the details, they had a young woman write in who seemed to be late teens, early 20s, that sort of thing, who literally admitted to them that she had been sexually assaulted in the past. And that, along with her consensual sexual experiences, left her feeling kind of like guilty and bad, and, you know, she wanted to repent with God, that sort of thing.
Okay.
They completely glossed over her sexual assault and shamed her for it, essentially. I'm not okay with this. So we're going to jump into watching their video. We're going to start off with them reading out her letter, and then we're going to talk a little bit about how I'd address it, then have a look at how they address it.
There's something about Girl
and-
Defined. Those two, I just find them so fucking creepy.
I'm sure you probably won't read this. But
I'm sure they were grown in whatever vat Paula Dean came from.
Advice, and I would really appreciate it if I did get a response.
Here's your response.
Here's your response. I was raised in a Christian household. That is
Like, seriously, look at Paula Dean. The woman's a homunculus.
Further and further away from God and His Word. I've done things with my boyfriends in the past, with and without consent. I've been really wanting to get back into my spirituality and relationship with God for a while now, but I'm not sure how to even start, or if it's even possible with the things I've done in the past. Is it even possible to re-purify yourself from sex outside of marriage? And if so, what does that look like? I'm terribly lost right now and would really appreciate a response or even a video talking about these topics or talking about situations that people who haven't always been Christians might run into.
Okay, so let's talk about the one thing that stands out to me in this letter. The line that talks about how I've done things with my boyfriends with and without consent. Now, ambiguous phrasing aside, because I get it, okay, this maybe sounds like she did things to her boyfriends without consent. I don't think this is a rape confession. I don't think this is a sexual assault confession. I think this is her saying, I was raped, I was sexually assaulted. And I think it is. a bit of a not a cry for help, but I think it's her saying like, I need some reassurance here. Let me know I'm not
Right.
wrong.
Yeah, that's what it sounds
it's
like.
like a huge thing, and it is so brave to admit and talk about and be open about, and you can't just ignore it. When someone says this kind of thing to you, that I was sexually assaulted, you can't just gloss over it and pretend it's not there. It's so important for people who've been through this to know that it is not their fault. They did nothing wrong. If someone did something to you without your consent,
I wish there was the
regardless of your
option to
background,
turn on a
regardless of what you've
ding
done
when somebody
before,
comes on.
regardless of if you've done sexual things with them before with consent, regardless of your religious background, if someone does something to you without your consent, it does not make you bad, it does not make you dirty, it does not make you impure, it does not make you a sinner. You are not at fault. And I think this needs saying over and over and over. You can't say it enough. And to just gloss over these things as though they aren't even important, it's so dangerous. In these situations, you are not the one who has to ask for forgiveness. Whoever hurt you should be asking for your forgiveness. Girl Defined managed
Right.
to absolutely ignore this, and it disgusts me. The response they give to this letter would be bad enough to say to just any young girl, but the fact that they're saying it to someone who has had non-consensual sexual experiences, someone who has been sexually assaulted, someone who's potentially been raped, the fact that they're saying this directly addressing a victim of sexual assault, it makes it so much worse. Just bear that in mind as you listen to this response. Remember who they're talking to here.
The first thing I want to say to you and to any of us who have experienced sexual impurity, which that's me, that's you, that's none of us are perfectly pure, and that's the whole point of why Christ died. We are all sexually broken. We're all impure. We all struggle with lust. We all sin and need to repent of that sin before God.
It's different ways.
It's just in different ways.
Sexually
different situations,
broken.
different seasons, different sin, but at the bottom, at the heart of it, we are all impure, and that is exactly why Christ died, because he wants to forgive us of our sins. He died on the cross not because we're perfect girls, but because we're sinful girls. That is why Christ died, so that he could forgive our past and redeem our future.
This is such an unnecessary kick in the stomach for this poor girl. Let's put all the
Oh,
consensual stuff that she's done aside, right? They're literally saying, okay, you were sexually assaulted, and that makes you a sinful girl. You are the reason why this God that you believe in and worship had to die. You're impure. You're sexually broken. These are horrible, horrible words and phrases to use about anyone. Never mind a victim of sexual assault. Screw that. It's horrible. Here's the thing for everyone to remember. If you or someone you know has been the victim of sexual assault, you or they are not broken. You're not sexually broken. You're not physically broken. You're not morally broken. There's nothing broken about you. And if you've done something sexually with you and your partner's consent, you're also not sexually broken. Sexual impulses and just wanting to act on them like a regular human being, part of life. They don't make you broken, they don't make you dirty, they don't make you impure. And we need to stop telling young people that they do. Don't let people like Girl Defined tell you that you're broken, impure, sinful, just because you're a regular human being with a regular human.
Now, there's nobody on right now, but this is for anybody who wants to actually sit and watch through this later, because there are some weird people. People watch me make meatballs, and that's one of the highest rated videos I've had in the last month for some reason. Proportionally more thumbs up over thumbs down. Why? I was making meatballs. But okay, so I'm a polytheist, I'm a pagan, and I'm gonna do a video one of these days about my top 10, maybe 13. I do top 13 lists a lot. Just because, right? Gotta be all extra spooky and goth. So I've got a video idea in my head for my top 13 YouTubers who I don't always agree with. And Rachel Oates is one of them, because she's an atheist. And so I'm a polytheist. I believe that I believe that the divine manifests in multiple ways, and I recognize these multiple ways as a collection of deities, demigods, nature spirits, and heroes, which I'm more using in the classical Hellenic sense, where, you know, it's somebody who wasn't born divine, but who achieved apotheosis. In one way or another, and, you know, and whose life serves as a, you know, whose, you know, story gives us a lesson about our own mortality and all that. And, you know, I mean, I could go in a bit more detail on that definition, but so, you know, I don't completely agree with either Rachel Oates or Girl Defined on this. So, you know, if you're of a religion, so as a polytheist, there are certain ways that I see as proper and improper ways to approach the deities at their shrine space, or, you know, at your altar, you know, that you've constructed for ritual. So there are proper and improper ways to approach deities, and, you know, but that's not exactly sin. In Hellenism, you know, which I originally came from. Well, I mean, not originally. Originally, I was Catholic, but in Hellenism, there are things we do that creates miasma, and miasma is not exactly sin, though there are some Greek Orthodox Christians who, you know, treat it as as a synonym for sin. What the fuck? I think I cut my lip on the inside with my Labret stud. That's what it's felt like this last couple days. Hopefully Josh reopens the shop soon, and I can get that looked at. So yeah, so there are ways that we can that are preferable to approach deity, because, you know, which cleanses our miasma for you know, for ritual purposes. Miasma is not sin. Miasma is one way that I've seen it translated that probably might sound a little off to people who are not coming from a Hellenist or even a polytheist experience, but miasma basically it can be defined as the stench of mortality. So you know, we do not approach shrines or altar for ritual when we are sick. We don't necessarily approach them immediately after sex, though there were a couple ancient cultists where, granted, these were more Phoenician. There was a Phoenician cult that and I forget the goddess, that did engage in sacred prostitutes at their temple. It wasn't an especially widespread practice, but obviously, you know, if there is a prostitute who works, you know, for the temple and is engaging in this as, you know, a ritual practice. In fact, like, very little is concretely known about temple prostitution. That's something that really bugs me when people bring it up. That's one thing that I had to rant on about in Raven Caldera and Tannen Schwartzstein did this book called The Urban Primitive. And it's about, you know, adapting various aspects of urban life for, you know, for pagan and polytheist religious practices, and especially, you know, the lifestyle that is born of these religious practices. I'm just softening up my taffy so it's easier to chew in a bit. So so then what happens? Oh yeah, like, I don't know who it is that wrote that part, but, you know, the thing is that, like, there's very little concretely known about temple prostitution. It was not an especially widespread practice. the closest it got to being an Hellenic or even Roman practice was there was a colony, I believe a Greek colony in Phoenicia, or on Phoenician lands, that did at least interact with the native Phoenician cultists that had some temple prostitute or another. There's a lot of speculation about how it was practiced and why and exactly for what purposes. Um, but yeah, so and I say like immediately after sex because if you are initiated into Wicca from a polytheist background, there is the whole Great Rite, which is sex magic. There's like no way around that. I mean, yes, you can do the Great Rite symbolically with a chalice and an athame, but yeah, like the gist of the Great Rite of Wicca is sex magic. That's what it is. It's a fertility practice, at least as far as Gardnerian or British traditional practice. It's like the same. It's like the same thing, but two different terms. It depends on which side of the Atlantic you're on. So in Gardnerian and in Gardnerian or British traditional Wicca, the Great Rite is sex magic because that lineage of Wicca, and I believe Alexandrian as well, though that's a specific offshoot from Don't Fall. I have a whole lot of copper gelatin molds that better not fall. But then what was I saying? Oh yeah, so crap and stuff. So yeah, it is basically it's a fertility cult. And I'm not saying cult in this as in like the charismatic cults that end up brainwashing people and all that. I mean like cultists in polytheism is when you is basically the specific practices surrounding a deity, especially if it is so. So yeah, we really don't know much about temple prostitution. There's a lot of speculation as to the how, when, and why it was a thing, but it was not a very widespread practice. It was confined to a small cult, at least in the Greco-Roman world, to a small cult in a colony. Temple prostitution is speculated to have occurred in a couple other areas, but we don't have concrete evidence of this, which would be in writings, of course. So yeah, like under like city practice, approaching approaching Aphrodite, if she was like the patron goddess of this city, approaching her temple for service, because there were regular services at various temples and stuff. So you would still be expected to wash your hands, especially if you had taken care of your morning wood that before attending. So you'd be expected to wash your hands to cleanse the miasma. Your hands, usually your face as well, sometimes feet. It depended on the temple. You would be expected to wash yourself. Like I said, especially if you took care of your morning wood. But say you go and visit family in this Phoenician colony. I'm just saying this, as an example here. So, you go and visit, some family or friends in this Phoenician colony, and, they, and just say hypothetically, they, honor Aphrodite. I think it was like Ishtar or something, but they say they honor Aphrodite as just as an example, or as Aphrodite syncretized with Ishtar at this at this temple that does have the sacred prostitutes. Say it's, I don't know, I'm just throwing out speculation, but say it is as like a form of sex magic to that you are basically paying the temple prostitutes for, and you go there. So obviously miasma will not be related to sex in that context, but you would still be expected to cleanse yourself of any prior, like you would still be expected to wash your face, hands, probably feet, maybe genitals, before engaging the sacred prostitute, because sacred prostitute, she's a lot, she has certain ways about her sexing that you're taking care of yourself does not. So you still want to like cleanse yourself of that miasma to engage in this holy good sacred sex, yeah, and I'm just throwing that out as an example. It's a speculative sort of thing. I don't know exactly. Like I said, we know almost nothing about temple prostitution at the few places that we know it existed. So yeah, it's not that sex is sinful. It's that sex brings the stench of mortality with it. Under most circumstances. So you do not want to approach. So, like I kind of see like where the girl-defined women, even though they are very creepy, they are so creepy. Just you can't unconvince me of their creepiness. So I can kind of see, I mean, yeah, I mean, if you if you were like, I'm almost sympathetic, but at the same time, I came from a household that did use Christianity fairly abusively. So, I'm not incredibly sympathetic, but, I can kind of see what they're saying in the context of religion, that, maybe you'd want to rebaptize yourself because, sex outside of marriage, it is not something that Christians would necessarily engage in. At the same time, I also do see what Rachel Oates is saying. At the same time, I also if you want to say that miasma is synonymous with sin, which it is not, but if you want to say that it is, then I mean, yeah, sex, would be quote unquote sinful in that really watered down definition of miasma, but at the same time, it's not like sinful in the Christian sense, there's a difference, like Christians, in Christianity, sin is, it seems a little bit more loaded than simply the stench of mortality. It's not it's not something that makes us mortal. It is something that makes us unworthy. Do you understand the difference there, you two weirdos who decide to watch this later? So yeah, that's kind of my qualm. It's like, I see how people want to treat as community if they've come previously Christian backgrounds. I see a lot of people trying to equate miasma with sin, and while that's not correct, because in Christianity, sin is it like I said, in Christianity, sin does not sin is not a benign thing, whereas in Hellenism, miasma is, relatively speaking, benign. It's just something that we engage in a small cleansing ritual with purified water, to wash face and hands, and depending on the temple or the region or the specific ritual, other parts, but face and hands is pretty universal. So, to to cleanse the aura of humanity. I'll put it that way. That sounds a little better, or at least not so loaded. So to cleanse the aura of humanity from us before approaching the gods. We want to, wash our face and hands in purified water. But with sin, it's not so much that it is, it's not so much that it's an artifact of humanity. It's that it's an artifact of humanity that makes us unworthy to approach the Christian God. Because I think Jewish sects are a little bit more relaxed about it than Christianity is, at least based on what I know of a lot of Jewish sects. Mein Bialik seems fairly reasonable on all this. And granted, I've never been Jewish, so but yeah, so that's where Sin and Miasma are they've got very telling differences on why they're different. So like, if we were talking Miasma, then I'd say, yeah, if you wanted to, take a more stoic approach to your sex life, through conversion, it's not unfair to, try and, to want to cleanse yourself at the same time. Oh God, I'm ranting so much on about this. And, and Rachel Oates is trying to say something very important, which is that being the victim of sexual assault is not, it's not a moral failing of yours, and that I absolutely agree on. But at the same time, because Girl Defined was speaking just more broadly, I can see how Rachel Oates' response can also be applied broadly, though she's being very specific, and I apologize. Somebody's going to come after me harder than Kevin Hart over this, I'm sure.
We should be teaching young people how to understand themselves and their bodies and their desires and their impulses and what they want. We should be teaching them to feel empowered and feel in
I need to get
control
another
of
one
their
of these
bodies
sometime.
and their wants and their needs.
Right.
We should teach them to feel strong enough to say yes or no. We should teach them to understand consent and how to ask for it and how to give it and
Of course
how to
it
say
got
no and how to hear that no.
tough
We
again.
should be teaching them how to be safe and responsible in terms of avoiding STDs, avoiding unwanted pregnancies, and so on. We should be teaching them to be careful about other people's feelings and their own feelings. We should not be blindly teaching them that we're all sexually broken. Those kinds of words, those kinds of phrases, those kinds of labels are so harmful.
Yeah, sexually broken is not a good thing to tell young people.
Insecure or unsure or have a ton of pressure on them. I mean, I know as a teenager, I was this insecure, mousy little train wreck. I was just an absolute mess. And it's not fair to take already vulnerable people like that and pile on more pressure, calling them sinful and impulsive girls or boys, and making them feel guilty for stuff that they don't need to feel guilty about. Teach people to feel bad when they've done something wrong, like hurting someone. Or
and that's another thing, is especially having come from a Catholic background, sin is something that is heaped with feelings of guilt, and miasma is not something one should feel guilty about, because it's just what makes us human and mortal. So it's part of the aura of humanity that through a very simple ritual, we temporarily lift the veil on when we approach the gods.
All go out and do whatever you want and be polyamorous and promiscuous and this. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying we should teach young people to be comfortable in who they are, responsible in how they act, and always be safe. we shouldn't be shaming them just because they have desires or they feel lust or they feel whatever. And
Oh
coming
shit,
back
my
to
watch is still
victims of sexual
kitchen.
assault, I'll say this many times as me saying,
I took it
you
off to
are
do
not at
dishes.
fault. You are not impure. You are not sinful. You are not sexually broken. You have absolutely nothing to feel guilty about. Whether you're a Christian or an atheist like me, doesn't matter what your beliefs are. If someone did something to you without your consent, you are not at fault. You have nothing to ask forgiveness for. You have nothing to feel guilty about. And yeah, that's kind of pretty much it. I know this was a short video, but I felt this is something that needed saying in response to this short girl-defined clip, because I just feel like the message they're sending across could do so much harm to people, like of any age, of any gender, to be told that, you know, they're broken and impure because they were hurt by someone is horrible. And the fact that they didn't address this consent issue just shows to me how kind of narrow-minded their view is, how naive they can be, and also how, I don't want to say uncaring, but maybe sometimes they're not as thoughtful as they could be. And that's why I think it's really important that, you know, not just like me, but like other YouTubes, I think, kind of take a stand and talk about Girl Defined and really highlight some of the issues with them. Mr. Atheist does absolutely fantastic Girl Defined videos. I don't know if he's covered this one. I've not really been watching YouTube this weekend, so I don't know if he's done it or not, but he covers a lot of Girl Defined stuff in a really cool way. He's a really great channel. If you want to check him out, I'll link him below.
Okay.
But I'm going to shut up now. Thank you for watching today. Thank you for sticking with me. Sorry this was shorter and quicker than normal, but, you know, thought it was worth saying. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and hopefully I'll see you guys again soon. Thank you so much for watching today. I really appreciate you guys so much. And a huge thank you goes out to everyone supporting me on Patreon this month, including Gambit in a Show for Dave Sean, Data Jack, Rachel B. Royer, Heidi Mattilla, Jaden Shepherd, Corthy, Jaylee Moore, Sir Michael Moore, Christian Opitz, Sage Valarial, Greg Ladd, and Lauren Hart. And to everyone else supporting me on Patreon, you guys are amazing. I love you so much. Don't forget, if you want to see more stuff from me, go follow me over on Instagram at Rachel Oates with a 0, not an O, because I'm annoying. I've also got a merch store if you want to check that out. I'm going to be doing some really cool stuff with it this year. But, you know, no pressure. Whatever. Let's see you guys again
She
soon.
does seem very sweet and well-intended, which is one of the reasons that I love her. She's just so nice. She's seriously one of the nicest atheists on the internet.
Jaeger bombs vomiting everywhere. That's what I picture. With it's called Uproar, spelled Roar, R-A-W-R. Yeah. But anyway, VMV Nation finishes at 10 o'clock. Uproar is on at 10:30. So I'm really fascinated to see the kind of people who turn up at the end. Like, do scene kids still exist? Are they still out there? Are they going to come piling down to this club?
I do love Dorian on Herbs and Altars.
Yes, briefly before I go, I did say many years ago.
They're a very sweet person. But at least they seem so anyway.
I did say that BNB Nation were one of the most disappointing live bands I've ever seen when I saw them back in 2011, 2012. The reason for that wasn't that they sucked. Everything was good. It was their set list. Their set list was rigid as fuck.
Ooh.
It was dance track, filler track, dance track, filler track, all the way through. So you dance to one, you'd be like, yeah, yeah. There was no moment of like, oh, that was good. Oh, this is even better. Oh my god. There was no like escalating of the mood. It was rigid, and that really pissed me off. But it's a few years later now. I'm a few years older. And quite frankly, if they still do this thing with like filler tracks sandwiched between dance tracks, it's all right. I'm an old goth now, and I'd like time to get my breath back. And you know, it makes me wonder if they're actually sponsored by the venues they play at to do this. Because my God, it's got to increase the bar taking, surely, by loads. If you don't have people dancing, if people dance and then they go, ugh. So every 2 tracks they go, ugh, let's get a drink. Wow, I mean, VMB Nation bar takings must be huge. Let's see if they do that tonight. So I'm going to go. Unfortunately, there's probably not going to be particularly great footage
Seriously?
of VMB in this.
Why is this giving me a thing telling me
I will try, but I'm not bringing
shit
this
that I
back
already
because the last time I
know?
brought it to a gig, I wasn't allowed to go in with it anyway, so I'm going to bring my little
Oh,
Disney
fuck.
camera. It doesn't have zoom.
I need to
It
fill
fucks
my
up the
pill
sound.
pods
It's generally a
today.
piece of crap, but it looks like a piece of crap.
And I
so
could
if
do
you
it early
really don't say,
tomorrow,
"That looks
but
professional," you
I have to
can't do it.
go renew the
Obviously,
lease
it's professional, to be
tomorrow,
honest,
and
but
then
it's still a big
what?
camcorder, and they think I'm
And
up
then
to
I gotta
shit.
go get my eyebrows
Even though
waxed,
realistically,
and after the
I'm not
eyebrows
one of this younger
is
generation
game
who goes to
night.
gigs. to stare at the entire thing through a fucking screen for the sake of likes when they get home, when they upload it. You know, I go to gigs to be at the gig and to dance at the gig. And, you know, I don't think I've ever actually recorded any footage at a gig in my life, ever. I've tried to take pictures when I saw David Bowie in 2000 at Glastonbury. Wow, I'm old. But he was too far away, and this was like literally a film camera. This was that long ago. And all I got was like a grainy smudge in the distance. And that's the only time I've ever tried to film at a gig. But anyway, let's see if I managed to film things right. Don't forget phone. I haven't put on perfume yet. Oh, okay, right, perfume. Let's go.
We are late. We are running fucking late. We are running so late. Oh my god, I'm gonna have to drive so fast. My spikes are totally hitting the roof. I'm having to sit here like a hunched up gerbil. And I've got my polar bear coat on. It is freezing. There was ice on my windscreen. This is dangerous mode now. You gotta hit 88 miles per hour. Kick the flux capacitor into gear. And fucking time travel there. That's the only way we're going to do this. Slippery. This looks very slippery. Oh, Jesus. Oh, my God. I nearly ended up in the ditch. Wow. I didn't actually skip, but my God, there is visibly some ice on this road. Oh, fuck me. I can't even drive like a wanker now. Oh, dude. I'm going to be so late. Let's have some Ramones just to really assist with the impatience issue. Fuck's sake! You're one of these people who likes to drive a whizzy car but not actually use the acceleration. I see the kind of person you are. Oh my god, I'm supposed to be there literally 3 minutes ago!
I heard the Ramones last night at Kroger, of all places. That's so wild, and it makes me feel so old.
Dude. Oh my god, they're so close together! I'm not overtaking this douchebag. No way, not until I can. Oh my god, he's huge. Your coat is not made for this road, mate. Look at it, it's over the fucking line. What? Oh, I'm just gonna have to
God.
lose it in a minute.
Oh god, they're watching Winnebago. Oh wait, no, it looks like a bus. Looks like one of those
saying modern person turns to their sat nav, but I turn to a piece of paper in my hand which I've written down directions on. It's a system that has served me well since 2004, and I'm not giving up on it yet. I got so lost in Birmingham a few weeks back that I wanted to fucking kill myself. And at that point, the sat-nav saved my ass, and I began to see why people like these things. Because my A to Z wasn't helping at all. I was literally, like, on the curb, pulled up with my hazards on, screaming at my A to Z. There was a woman going past with a pushchair, giving me looks like she was about to call the fucking police because I was clearly psychotic. And I thought, okay, I'm going to give in. I'm going to turn the sat-nav on. What are you doing, mate? What the fuck are you doing? But I really do prefer to have directions written on a piece of paper and be able to visualize the map in my head because I've seen it. The idea of just putting in a postcode and blindly driving, like only knowing street by street by street as it's shown to me, that freaks me out a bit, to be honest. Okay, this is the point at which I don't know where I'm going. This is the point at which it is all new. Panic attack, hang on, what do I do? Do I go this way or that way? Are we lost?
Oh dear.
Oh dear, God in heaven. What is this? What is this? Oh shit, this is Hospital Street. Oh, this is the wrong road. Just gotta go around the block. Theoretically. God, it looks dodgy around here. It looks seriously dodgy around here. Oh wow. Oh, this is a shithole, man. I'm gonna get stabbed. I think that's allowed. I think I can park here. Okay, alright, well, I have no idea where I am, but I think it's just up there. Putting my boots on. I can hear some thumping.
familiar, which is a good sign. It sounds quite kind of industrially gothy, but it doesn't sound like a VMB Nation song. So hopefully, I haven't missed anything yet. What's the time? Ooh, okay, it's 8:10, so I'm actually only really 10 to 20 minutes after I wanted to get here. I might be a little bit illegally parked, but fingers crossed it doesn't look like the kind of place that a parking warden is going to walk around at night, because they probably get stabbed. I was going to leave my coat in the car, but because I don't know how far away the venue is, I'm going to put it on. I'm going to be a polar bear. Thank God I bought this coat instead of my leather jacket, because this is actually going to keep me warm. Right, okay, all right. I don't think there's any time to smoke any weed before we go. I think we should just get going. So, let's go. And hope they let me in with this camera. It's tiny. It's a tiny little camera, so hopefully they'll let me. Please let me not be lost. Please let me find the car on the way back. Please let me not have missed the gig. Let's go. Well, that was partly absolutely fucking beautiful. That was so beautiful when I first got there. I got there and they were playing Epicenter, and I was busting for a piss, but I was like, I can't be in the toilet queue while they're playing Epicenter. That song, I've been walking at night listening to that song recently a lot, and it inspired a scene in the novel I'm rewriting. It inspired a whole total change of mood and everything in that scene. So they were playing that, and I was like, dude, okay, fuck my piss. I'm just gonna go and dance to this. They played that, followed by Chrome, followed by Control, and I was like, this is heaven. But it's a very
I've
frustrating
warmed
kind
up
of
to
heaven,
VMV
because
Nation
there's
in my old
not really
age.
room to dance. It's a dancey band, and I'm just
So about 100 years ago at this point, well, almost more like 20. Stop.
and all I can really do is
Pause. So more like 20. So around 1998 to about 2003, 04, there was this like huge movement to rebound, taking the moniker of death rock, which death rock is less a genre, I would say, though it's kind of going in that direction lately. A lot of people will call a band like, oh, that's death rock, when as sort of like a shorthand for this band really loves the Only Theater of Pain album by Christian Death. So I mean, tell me otherwise. You really can't convince me of otherwise. But no, death rock originally is not so much a genre in the most meaningful sense, at least not incredibly separate from British Gothic rock, especially the positive punk movement that splintered off from anarchists, like Poison Girls, Rubella Ballet, original Southern Death Cult, original Sex Gang Children, but death rock was more or less just the local Los Angeles and San Diego sort of, it was the Southern California, especially concentrated in Los Angeles. That was the name for, the bands that would, later become recognized, that would later become recognized as, early American goth, or, early American Gothic rock. So death rock was the local scene. And so in trying to revive the underground in the wake of the mainstreaming of goth in the mid to late 90s. There was this huge like goth versus goth industrial, as in the club scene, versus death rockers, who were more like it was like nightclub versus like pub band, sort of kind of thing. The really big club to that's been credited for helping to revive LA death rock as an underground movement focused on early goth bands, especially LA bands. But there's this old Starbucks interview that somebody on the goth subreddit, r/goth subreddit, they love to pull out this goddamn Starbucks interview, but one of these quotes that he loves to throw at people, while he's insisting that death rock is not goth. One of the quotes, the woman being quoted was specifically saying, oh yeah, sometimes they'll play sometimes at the goth clubs they'll throw us a bone and play like old Bauhaus or something. And I'm like, wow. So because that quote doesn't mean what he wants it to mean. Like Bauhaus is an early gothic rock band. They're an early British gothic rock band. So, like including Bauhaus as a death rock band that says that death rock's not a genre, it's a local scene. But yeah, like 98 through about 2003, 04, I was a big online presence, especially though for a time, I want to say about a year, I lived out in LA. But yeah, I was a big online presence, especially on the old deathrock.com message board. And so like and I also managed the live journal community that was like death rock. That was the name of the community. So yeah, I managed the live journal death rock live journal group, and or we called them LJ communities. And I was a big presence on the old deathrock.com message board, and like I lived in LA for about a year, and was at a lot of clubs out that way fairly regularly. In fact, like the one time I was like in some head of relationship stupid and was like not at the club for like 2 or 3 weeks in a row, and then I come back like my friend Alf is just like, oh, you're back, and he gives me a hug, and oh god, I'm still kind of in love with him, but oh well. He is who he is. But what was I saying? All right, so there's this huge thing of like this huge thing, and a lot of it was tongue-in-cheek, but especially from the older people. But if you were younger like myself, you got really serious about it, and this was like a thing. This was like this big separatist movement between goths who listen to synth pop at their nightclubs, and the death rockers who listen to the punk based early bands at the dive bars. And in fact, Que Sera, which hosted Release the Bats, that was an old lesbian bar. I think they ended up expanding clientele, but it's got a huge history as a lesbian bar. And so like once a month, I think Dave and Jen were friends with one of the owners. So yeah, but yeah, so like if my 19-year-old self from about like 99 2000 could see me like warming up to V&V Nation 20 years after the fact, I would be kind of horrified at myself. My younger self would be horrified at my current self. I put up with V&V Nation's music when I was that age because my boyfriend at the time really loved V&V Nation, and I was just like, I don't see the difference between this and Erasure. Well, oh god, there was that one album that they did where I swear it sounded like Erasure, the first couple songs on there. Like that was the album. Like if you listen to a lot of VNV Nation, you probably know the album I'm talking about. I don't remember the album I'm talking about. I don't remember the name, but I remember hearing it and it sounded so much like Erasure. But yeah, I've met the guys when they've done, you know, little appearances at clubs after shows and stuff. And Ronan Harris was a guest DJ at Nectarine about, oh shit, how old am I now? 11 years ago. 11 years ago, he did a guest DJ spot at Factory Mondays. He is so sweet. The other guy, is it Mark? Is his name Mark? I know Ronan Harris. He is really sweet. He's really sweet, really unassuming. Mark, though, let's see. Yeah, Mark, he was guest DJing at Labyrinth one day. This was like before I was DJing there. And I go up to the DJ booth and I'm not expecting him there. So this was just this little impromptu thing, you know, like the day after their concert. Whatever, I don't know why he was there. I know he wasn't performing that night, but he was just there. He was just there at Labyrinth one day. I think his name is Mark. Is it Mark? If somebody watches this far, please correct me if his name was not Mark. And he's just like, hi, I'm something from VNV Nation. And I'm just there at the booth. I'm like, oh, okay. I want to give a request to Brian. I'm just like, I don't care. Like, I'm this little, like, 18, 19-year-old kid, and I'm just, like, up at the booth. I'm like, that's nice. I want to give a request to Brian. You know, that was just, like, but yeah, like Ronan Harris is so sweet. He's just so sweet and unassuming. And you know, when he's done the guest DJ at the Nectarine, you know, he just wants to, you know, play the music and get people dancing. And he did such a nice blend. He like threw in some old school stuff that I liked from the 80s and early 90s. He even played something by the Kaiser Chiefs, which I was not expecting, but I loved it. Because I do like the Kaiser Chiefs. I do. I spent a time DJing Mod Revival and British Ska at a mod night around here. Early in my transition, I just took a couple years off from the golf scene because I kind of wanted a fresh start. And plus, you know, when you're young and you're transition, or at least younger than I am now. Oh God, yeah. Oh God, that was 12 years ago. But yeah, like when you're young and you're really stuck and you're early in your transition, you go through this period where you're just like, passing is life, must do everything I can to look just like I'm supposed to. And you know, at some point, most of us, at some point, we just like get to a point where we're comfortable and, you know, we no longer have that kind of, you know, his life mentality. And, you know, we're, you know, so at some point I just realized, you know what? Yeah, I do love Mod Revival and Ska, but I still listen to Super Eternus on a weekly basis. You know, oh yeah, Super Eternus, Ross Williams. I still listen to this on a weekly basis. Oh, Wall of Voodoo too. I never stopped listening to Wall of Voodoo or Virgin Prunes. Yeah, yeah, there's a whole lot of goth music that I never stopped listening to, though I did take a break from some stuff. Like I think I needed to take a break from Field of the Nephilim to realize how much I actually do love them. And I gotta get to part 2 of that video. There's gonna be three chapters is what I'm at now with scripting it, but I need to get to chapter 2 of that one. But yeah, like I said, if my 19-year-old self could see forward in time and see that I've actually warmed up to VNV Nation, I admit part of it. Oh God, so yeah, like this whole like death rocker versus, you know, goth / cyber goth / goth - industrial rivalry. There was one time in the Death Rock Live Journal community where somebody had found this neo-Nazi website that had their little web store as well, and this neo-Nazi web store stocked music by VNV Nation, and so of course, you know, all the like gung-ho like death rock is life kids were just like, yeah, see, I told you, this is why we shouldn't, you know, play those clubs. And I'm thinking to myself, hold on a sec, if they had any kind of, you know, stuff like like Scott, who was still my boyfriend at the time. I think he was my boyfriend again there's a long history with me and Scott. We had off and on for about 5 years, living together in some capacity for about 10 years, and we had 3 cats together. That's one of those relationships where if, you can't not be friends after breaking up. And if you can't be friends after breaking up from that kind of relationship, then it's because one or both of you fucked up majorly. But that's another story for another time. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, Scott, huge V&V Nation fan. He would have probably known if they had any kind of neo-Nazi sort of sympathies. So I just decide, okay, I'm going to look up the contact email on their website and send them a message. And I did. I sent them an email, and I think it was Ronan that did reply to me. Because he's so sweet. He's just such a sweet man. I'm not the hugest fan of their music. I wouldn't turn it off if it came on, the Spotify, automatic list thing, but it's like, it's not my favorite music, but I've kind of warmed up to it. But what was I saying? Right. So I emailed VNV Nation from their little contact email on the website at the time, and I got a response back. And like I said, I'm pretty sure it was Ronan. Let's just say it was Ronan for the case of simplicity. So my message was simply I forget what it was titled, but the body was there was the link to the shop page that had the VNV Nation albums, and I said, were you aware? The body of my message was something along the lines of, were you aware that this shop is stocking your music because it's causing a bit of a panic on LiveJournal right now, and I get this really nice response back, and he says, we are fully aware that that they stock our music, and we've asked them not to repeatedly, but that's all we can do. They have the they have the business license to order wholesale from the distributor, and the distributor doesn't check to make sure that we're ideologically aligned with everybody who buys our records wholesale, and every shop that wants to carry them. But then he ends it with best case scenario, somebody listens to our music, really pays attention to the lyrics, and understands that we are in no way Nazis or Nazi sympathizers, and then they start to rethink their life and change their mind. And I'm like, you gotta see the silver lining in a case like that. You gotta hold out some hope that's like, okay, I can't stop neo-Nazis from buying my records, but maybe by buying my records, at least one person will actually listen and pay attention and hear what we're trying to say and rethink their life choices. So I'm like, that was really nice. That was really nice. So I gotta be honest, that definitely helped warm me up to VNV Nation. It's like I said, it's still not my favorite music in the world. I do have a preference for the old LA bands, so like Christian Death, Mephisto Waltz, Superheroines. Oh god, I got a couple Superheroine vinyls last year. I am really behind on my favorite records I bought last year. It's because I got a new shelf for new to me. I replaced the shelf of all my records, and they're all out of order, and I've just had the damnedest time finding them. And when I get home from doing chores, I'm usually in some kind of pain. I just want to, or I'm just like stressed out, especially this last weekend. Oh, God. I'm going to turn Dorian's vlogging back on.
I'm very stuck to myself right now. Oh, I'm stuck to myself. But no, all I could really do was stamp my feet, and that was.
I love Dorian. They're such a delightful person.
It should have been a bigger venue. It should have been a way bigger venue. But then they did the thing. Except it was worse than the Thing, because instead of going dance track, filler track, dance track, filler track, they went epic, 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 epic. Filler track, filler track, filler track, filler track, and then it ended, and it was a filler track at the end. So you kind of walk out feeling a little bit like okay, I'm not sure. Doesn't leave you on a high note, but nonetheless, it was beautiful.
Oh yeah, at least you enjoy yourself.
My little matching gloves, I can't get them now. And where's my other glove? Where's my
Yeah,
other
if you
glove?
enjoyed the concert,
And many
it was a
people told me they liked
success.
my hair, including one very drunk girl who literally grabbed me by the head. Your hair's really nice. And I nearly lost my ears. I had to check I still had them. But no, it was nice. It was nice. And I was trying to God, my car is like so. Let me just turn on the engine and start defrosting all this shit. No, I was trying to ask the cloakroom girls like what music they actually play at this uproar night that is on in a minute. And they were saying, you know, some rock and some punk and some metal. And then they said, we had a Bring Me the Horizon night recently. And I was thinking, I'm not going to say anything, but that's kind of exactly what I was afraid of. That kind of thing, you know. That's the kind of thing I don't want to go to. That was sort of beautiful. Okay, let's go.
Oh, this looks beautiful.
Yay, we're moving.
This looks beautiful. I love this so much already.
There's chaos. There are goths in cars causing chaos
Okay.
everywhere.
So let's see. I can do these patches next on this sleeve.
To be at a gothy gig and see so many people
Where's the other
there
one?
dancing
All right,
around.
well, there's the
being so
Bauhaus
happy
right
and so
here.
many gothy people. I'm having festival thoughts now.
And
I'm
the
having big time
thread
festival
came off my
thoughts.
needle.
I need a wee.
There we go.
I need a wee so badly. Is there anywhere I can do a wee at this time of night? Like literally, actually, it's not that late, is it? Fuck me, it's not even 10 o'clock. Yes, there's got to be somewhere I can do a wee. I bet TGI Fridays is open. I'm gonna take a piss at TGI Fridays when I get there. It's quite a way, especially if this man in front of me dithers incompetently. Where's my I hate this bloody roundabout. Everybody hates this bloody roundabout. Come on, where are the reassuring red lights of somewhere I can urinate? I'm gonna go in this swanky fucking restaurant and I'm gonna see how many people I can offend with my hair and my desire to piss for free. A very, very swanky looking restaurant right now. And I'm gonna walk in and look for a toilet. Success, I've managed to pee. Actually, they were playing The Cure in there. They were playing The Cure, Friday I'm in Love. That's what happens. You put The Cure on at a nice restaurant. You attract the goths like moths. They come in, they piss in your toilets. They take selfies in your mirrors. There was an old man who kind of gave me a look like, like I was walking up waving a knife at him or something. Just like, try to look innocuous and try to look like I'm just sidling through innocuously like this, looking like a gigantic fluffy chicken with blue hair. Anyway, right, awesome. Okay, I'm happy now. Going home. Oh God, it's weird.
I kind of miss having blue hair myself, but I do not miss the upkeep for the color.
On a Saturday. What is that about? That is weird. See, if this was any kind of logical world, the golf club would have been on tonight, and everyone would have gone from B&B to the golf club. Well, no, the scene's dead, the city's dead, it's only on monthly, and it hasn't coincided, so all those fucking goths, whole packed ass room full of goths, and they're all just going home, like me probably, going, well, this is weird, this was weird, we're going home now. Like, the golf club could have made a fucking killing tonight.
Oh, yeah.
It's not their fault, it's the venue's fault, but it's still a bit lame. Yeah.
Oh, God. Oh, no. think
I had to have.
I think Ramones
I had
did
to have
cover
a
that.
kitchen dance. I had to look up their live stuff on YouTube, of which there is some which is very good. I found Epicenter. I found Control. I think I found something else that I like also. But yes, so if you haven't seen them live, or if you have, or if you like them at all, I do recommend having a big kitchen dance to their live stuff, because it is fun. It is fun. I'm like a weird budgerigar. I'm always quite happy dancing with a mirror. I find it weird to just dance in a living room without a mirror, but if you've got a mirror,
God damn it.
it's like there's another person dancing with you. Like a little budgerigar, you're tricked into thinking you've got a friend. That's been my recent form of exercise, because it's been so cold and horrible for walking. I started kitchen dancing instead. Kitchen dancing is my exercise. Actually, I've lost weight. I've fitted into my jawbreaker dress. It was amazing, gorgeous, like brocade steampunk jawbreaker dress that I haven't been able to get into. Every time I try and zip it up, there's like this much at the side of here, and it just won't. And this time I got into it, and I put it all down to kitchen dancing. But yeah, oh, it's lovely tonight.
Oh, I've dropped about 10 pounds
what I was wearing. This is
since
my
the
crazy
8th
chicken coat.
of January.
My crazy chicken coat, which I got from a thrift store, and it's lovely. But I got it in summer, and it was too hot to wear it, and I finally been able to wear it. Also, I have a very shiny bum indeed. My bum is very shiny, and these Fashion Nova trousers. It's the first thing I've ever bought from Fashion Nova. And I fucking love them. Oh my god, Fashion Nova need to do like a goth selection, seriously, because it's very hard to find the gothy things on their website. There's like a lot of mainstream crap, obviously, because it's a mainstream crap website. But the gothy pieces are very good. Hang on, my nose is running. I need to blow it, and that's not a very dignified thing to film. That's really annoying. I've had a cold for weeks, for about 2 months or so. I've had a cold. My nose is always running, so my makeup always ends up, it's not too bad today, but I usually end up with a little pink nose where I've had to wipe it all off. My singing voice has been fucked for weeks and weeks and weeks. Trying to get anything recorded is so difficult, because it's just weedy, and it just dies after about 3 takes, and it's like, why have I had a cold for weeks? It's pointless. Anyway, where were we? I showed you my outfit. It's very slimy. I'm very slimy, and all this fake plastic. On the subject of fake plastic, hang on. I know this is completely off topic, but this is a vlog. You're here now. Tough shit. Tolerate it. No, I got the most amazing thing at a thrift store the other day. And I haven't showed you it yet. Hang on. Look at it. Look at this absolute fucking orgasm of a coat.
Oh, wow.
My god. I went into the thrift store and I saw something in the window that looked a little bit gothy, and I thought, hang on, has the mysterious local goth been in? Because there is one. Because I see a lot of like really, really nobody but a goth is going to buy this type things in that charity store. I had a feeling they might have been back in. They clearly were, because I've also got a really lovely studded dress. It's beautiful. It's a little bit tight at the moment. I can get into it, but I think it'll look better, hopefully, in summer. I've lost maybe about another 4 pounds, and then I think it'll look great. But anyway, this was the prize of them all. I saw this, and I just snatched it off the rack, because I was like, everyone must want this. This is so beautiful. Nobody could not want it. And I had to try on the dress, and I gave this coat to the woman. I was like, this is mine. This is mine. Hide it. Look after it for me. I am buying it. Definitely buying it. Don't let anyone touch it. And it actually came with a black fur collar, which I kind of liked, but it's a bit too bulky, and I'm thinking I'm going to cut it down a bit. But it looked quite cool with that. But oh my god, £7. Sorry, I just spat at the screen with enthusiasm. So, £7. It's pristine,
fuck.
this jacket. I mean, it's basically new. The dress actually still has tags on. Both of them are by Parisian labels. This is by a Parisian label I've never heard of. Well, then I've never been to Paris. And it smells lovely too. This, I mean, it's fake leather, I think. But it smells. I don't know whether it's been worn a little bit or whether it's just hung in someone's closet, because it's really picked up the smell of someone's perfume. And you know how like leather and fake leather really take on.
Oh, I
scents,
love
and
the
scents don't
smell
come out
of
them.
real leather.
Which is kind of what's so lovely about what's so sexy about guys.
I'm not
jackets,
quite
guys
into
with
the
leather jackets around their
leather
jackets in
fetish
general.
scene,
The way
but
they pick up the
I come
smell
very
of the
close
guy
sometimes
is so sexy.
to
I think
how I
almost
feel
anyone
about
who's like
leather.
I feel like a
It's
sweaty,
almost
grimy person.
paraphilic in
Leather
a way,
jackets
because
are
oh god, just the musk of leather,
And it's not
like
just
a
the smell of leather,
good,
it's the smell of the
you
person.
know,
When
tap
perfume on
really
you
did really
consider
well.
taking
It
this
just
jacket
the
perfume counter and saying,
smell
sniff
is
this. Can you identify
it smells
what
like
you
bu-
think it is?
it smells like nuts. It does. It
It's-
smells
it's,
like balls. It
It
does. It
reminds me a little
smells
bit of
scrotumnal
Edith
and
Cushing
musky
from the
and
Peaks
masculine,
collection, which I do
and I
have.
love it.
But my skin, it murders it. I can only wear it in my hair. But it's, if you haven't smelled that one,
Seriously?
it's basically vanilla, but it's a kind of floral, musky, but very buttery vanilla.
Well, that makes
And the
sense.
perfume on this is just like that, but in a
What's it
more
called? Vanilla is
earthy
from an
way,
orchid,
whereas these ones
and
always smell quite kind of natural.
I have found
This
a cellar of
does have
vanilla
a perfume
orchids,
sense to it.
and they will,
Really
you know,
like
make
it.
the
I mean,
little
I don't know what
pods
it is. I
that you
think
can
I am
dry
gonna
and
mod
have
it a little
vanilla
bit.
forever.
I'm gonna get some. Don't know what paint to use because I've never painted on fake leather before. Somebody said acrylic. Is that good? Somebody tell me. I will do some googling anyway. But acrylic paint or whatever's good. I'm really conflicted about doing the whole cobweb thing on the points, you know, because everyone does that. Really, every goth in the world with a modded leather jacket has like the spider web on the point because it fits so nicely. I'm so allergic to like doing what once I've seen more than about 4 or 5 people doing exactly the same thing, I'm kind of like, on principle, I don't want to do that. So
I
so I don't
understand.
know what I'll draw on mine, but I'm going to put a logo on the back, and I think yes, if you saw my Cocoa Pink unboxing, there was a scent called Wayward Vampire,
God damn
and
it.
I thought that's such a cool logo. I want that on a t-shirt. So I think on the back of this, I'm going to paint in big swirling letters, Wayward Vampire, and that's going to be my logo. Because I'm also a little bit weird about band patches actually on jackets. Because I know it's like the thing to do. It's like the coolest goth thing to do is to find band patches that, you know, you've got to have a perfect combination of like the really, really obvious classic ones like Susie and the Banshees.
Oh no, I don't put patches on leather. I put patches on denim.
But then you've also got to get some really obscure shit in there just to make yourself look really knowledgeable. But I've never been really into the whole plastering yourself in band patches thing. Not since I was at school. I did it with my rucksack at school. But now, it's like people who get band tattoos, I'm always like baffled by that you would have so much faith in this group of honestly probably quite dysfunctional people. I think you do have to be a bit dysfunctional to be in a band and to make it work, and to want to be the center of all this noise and all this pressure and all of that chaos every night for years and years and years to make money. It's a very strange and unique career path to take. But there are these multiple people. Bands always change. Their stuff always changes. Sometimes different band members have different viewpoints, and then you can get one band member going off and becoming like a really vocal Nazi or something, and you've got their logo tattooed on you or something. I don't really like to put trust in things outside of myself very much. So band patches, because it's almost impossible for me to think of a band that I 100% am like, I love everything about them. I think that they represent my soul. There's always like, yeah, but there's all this shit they do that I don't like, and that album sucks, and like currently they're not so good, or like they've got those poppy songs that I don't like.
Or in the case of a
So
denim
much
jacket,
like,
I could just, clip the stitches and take the patch
representing myself
off.
in a shell of band patches. So I'd rather just have words and things that appeal to me on mine. But anyway, turning to the whole fucking point of this vlog, the gig. Yes, I arrived. I was late. They ended about 45 minutes earlier than I expected them to end. They ended 45 minutes before the scheduled end of the gig, which meant they started quite a lot before when I got there. I suspect I saw half the gig, which is sad. And I didn't see them play A Million from the new album, which I love so much. I'm not a huge fan of the new album, but A Million's a bloody lovely song. I suspect they played that at the beginning because I didn't get to hear it. But yes, walking in the middle of Epicenter, it felt very, very, this is all fated to be. This is perfect. We got here, in the middle of Epicenter.
Seriously?
So that was lovely. But yeah, the end of the gig did kind of nosedive down into the. I'd give you the names of the songs, but I'm afraid I don't know them because I don't like the songs. But the one about Shine a Light on Me, that they get really passionate about, and I don't feel that song at all. But you know, lots of songs like that, but they've got a beat. I mean, you could dance to them, but and I don't get. I mean, you guys tell me, do you genuinely love those tracks by V&V that are kind of slow and you never hear played at clubs, you would never play at a club? Those songs, do you actually like them? Because obviously some people do, because whenever I look on Deezer and I play V&V from like their top played tracks, all this slow shit like is near the top always. So a lot of people like it, but I don't. To me, V&V Nation rock as a band with gorgeous lyrics, yes, and gorgeous instrumentals and everything, but
they've got that one goddamn sound that they have on almost every album. It's that little and I swear that's just a preset that they put on.
Because I really thought about going to Treffin earlier this year. I was really
the way that their synth pop is arranged, it's rather basic. It's clear that, you know, especially early on, that they listened to a lot of Front 242.
But then I thought, you know what? I've had so many bad experiences at festivals. I mean, I loved Whitby, loved Whitby, but I hated Infest, I hated Resistance, and I hated Resistance a second time. So festivals are going to be a huge gamble for me. I mean, Treffin seems like a good balance of actual gothiness. Is not just like a freaking rave festival, like a rave festival in black. That was my problem with Infest and Resistance. They weren't my people. There was no thoughtfulness. There was nothing that was the goth scene in the 90s, and was what I loved about it. It was just rave people. It was just ravers in black. And Treffin does seem to be a bit more actually goth. And there's the quiet bits as well. There's the quiet bits wandering around the city, and it's not all just like rave. So it could be good. But if I don't enjoy it, it's very expensive, really. In terms of the money I have, it's very expensive with the flight and the hotel and the shopping I would do. Hell yes. So it would be expensive. And if I didn't enjoy it, that's my money blown for any holidays this year. So I was thinking, you know what? Treffin's a gamble, but New Orleans for Halloween isn't a gamble. Like, dude, that's going to be amazing. There's no way that can't not be amazing.
Speaking of, I need to go see my friend Billy's wedding.
It would be amazing.
I think it's in June. I think they picked a June. I need to recheck that.
Try and start saving up for New Orleans. But when it actually started feeling like a real possibility, I realised how terrifying the idea is.
I
it's
actually
9-hour flight.
I like the idea of Halloween in New Orleans, but I hate touristy shit. Even if I am visiting a city, I hate doing touristy shit. That's not how you get the feel for the city's spirit.
It would be further away from home than I've ever been. And I haven't been to America since 2008. And I've never been there alone. I mean, I've never properly holidayed abroad alone. I mean, I've flown out to Amsterdam on my own at least once and met my friend there. So I'm not bothered about flying on my own. Kind of. Airports are horrible. I've spent a week in Spain on my own, but I was at my dad's place. So I knew the area. It wasn't like foreign. It wasn't like, I don't know this city, I'm lost as shit, I don't know how to work anything. It wasn't that. And so the idea of doing New Orleans, 9-hour flight on my own, miles away on my own, a city I've never been in on my own. I could honestly see myself buying the plane, not literally the plane ticket, buying the hotel, spending all this money, and then the day I have to go and get on the flight, just being so anxious that I don't do it, and I just toss like 600 quid down the pan because I can't get on the plane. Like, that could happen. When I went to Florida, oh my God, we went down south to stay with my friend who was going with me, Bill. We stayed with his aunt and uncle the night before because they were near and they were going to drive us. Our flight left at about 3 o'clock more like 5 o'clock in the morning. It was horrible. And that night in their house, I was shitting myself. I didn't want to get on the plane. If it hadn't been for Bill and letting Bill down, I honestly think I wouldn't have got on the plane. The minute we touched down in Florida, I wasn't anxious about anything anymore. It was my first time flying long haul ever. And when we got to America, and it wasn't foreign, you know, it wasn't like, I can't speak the language, I don't understand what's in the shops, the food's different. It felt friendly. It was just like the UK, but friendlier, and cleaner, and bigger, and glossier. And I didn't have a shred of anxiety the whole time I was there. Honestly, much as I didn't want to get on the plane out, if it hadn't have been for Bill, there's a good chance I would have not got my flight home, and just sort of extended my holiday until the point that I was completely illegal in the country, and then I would have had to go home. But no, he was there, and he was like, "No, come on, you've got to get on the plane. You can't just stay in Florida because you don't want to go back to your life. You know, you can't just do that." I think I could have done. I think I could. I mean, I don't know how long you're legally allowed to stay. You can stay a few weeks.
3 months.
I never wanted to leave, and I was so desperate to get back. I bought lip balms.
3
and I
months
said to
on
myself,
passport.
I'm going to get back to America before these lip balms.
Maybe
are
it's
gone.
6.
Well, it's been now 11 years, and I haven't got back. So I'd love to. I really would love to, but I need practice. I do. I need some practice of going somewhere a bit less scary on my own first, which I might just do London. I've been meaning to do London for a while, go and see Highgate Cemetery and go to Slimelight and go to Camden and meet some friends, maybe an ex, since everyone has just moved to London or lives in London. And that on my own would be quite intimidating. I hate the tube. I hate London.
I love the tube.
And doing that on my own, that might be a good enough practice run, really, for New Orleans. I've talked for a very long time. I'm sorry, I'm completely waffling, but so I might just do that as a practice for New Orleans. But after tonight's gig, I am thinking, can I scramble around in time for traffic? Because I haven't sorted my
The
passport
only
yet. I need to get my
exception
passport
I
sorted.
have to my hate for
Lovely
touristy shit
nights, and
is
really good music, and
is when it's kind of
I think I'm
designed
actually
as kitschy
proud
touristy
of
shit,
being
which I
here
guess
tonight. They
New
mostly
Orleans
seem
would kind of
older.
qualify as that now, but
The crowd you
Frankenmuth
would get
in
at your
Michigan
festival,
is
resistance to
wonderful.
things that I've
If
hated
you want a
in the
kitschy little
past.
tourist hole,
Maybe it was just
it
that I
was,
was kind of near the back and probably the old
so the
goths
area,
congregate at the back.
so
But
Frankenmuth,
everyone I saw
going
seemed
by
to be about
going by the name Frankenmuth, it's a city in Michigan that's probably most famous for this store in there called Bronner's Christmas Wonderland, and Christmas is, with the Christ in all caps, and then Christmas Wonderland, and there are what's it called? Billboards directing you to Bronner's as far south as the Florida Panhandle, and my friend Susie came and visited from Canada about this was the That was the same summer I had the chest surgery. So that would have been about, how old am I now? 11, 12 years ago, something like that. Um, and so Scott and I decided to take her to Bronner's. Well, take her to Frankenmuth in general, but specifically to see Bronner's. And there are pictures of her, and she brought like the little pamphlets from it to show her friends back in Guelph, which is kind of to Toronto as Ann Arbor is to Detroit. So it's a smaller town that's kind of satellited off of the much bigger city, and it's got a college there that is known for this one specialty. At U of M, we've got the medical school. But then what happened? So yeah, we took her there, and I love Frankenmuth. It's just so mid-century kitschy. So it was founded by the city was founded by Bavarian immigrants, so German immigrants, but specifically from the Bavarian region. All of my favorite Germans that seem to be Bavarian somehow. Well, except for Nico. Nico's from Cologne, originally anyway. She considered herself more like this nomad citizen of the world, bohemian sort of thing, but she was there was so much wrong, but also so much else that was right about Nico and her life. But yeah, her art stands on its own. So then what happened? But yeah, and I want to say around the 1940s. So like right after the World War II, there was this huge boom with car travel, and like families would take road trips for like a weekend, and so Frankenmuth, already had like a bunch of little kitschy places that had that little that little gingerbread kind of edging around the roofs, and the crossboards out in front on a few places, just because the Bavarian influence from the original settlers to the area, the original town founders, and so they just decided to just do the whole downtown main strip for Frankenmuth in that little like gingerbread house kind of look that's associated with Bavaria, and and so they've got the big they've got this big fudge place where like they'll do the ribbons of fudge on the marble slabs, and they've got a couple little they've got a whole lot of kitschy little places, a lot of places that sell German and specifically Bavarian tchotchke and knickknacks and kind of stuff, only it's made to export to Frankenmuth. Like you'll get like like say this like big ass Frankenmuth beer stein, that it'll say like made in what's its town in Bavaria, but it will have like the Frankenmuth town seal emblazoned on it. So but I love it's the kitsch appeal. Like New Orleans, I figure now, like post Katrina, they've got a lot that they had a lot of incentive to not only rebuild but rebuild with the intent of getting the economy moving fast. So I think they've got a lot more intentionally tourist hole kind of things going on in New Orleans right now, which really saddens me. But at the same time, I hate I hate doing touristy shit, except when it was except when it is something that was explicitly designed to be touristy, like Frankenmuth. I love that mid-century kitsch. I love it. That's what I love about it. It's like it's so something right out of the like say like 1947 to 1964-ish, that nice little span of time where everything was just so kitschy and corny, and intentionally so, and a lot of people don't realize that there was a bit of humor that went into this kitschy kind of stuff that went on there. Like a lot of people now don't realize that there was this humor. Like people knew how corny a lot of these things were. yeah, but yeah, it's so that's what I just love about it is like it's so clearly like if you understand um mid 20th century, especially American culture, uh, there was I don't think there was quite as much kitsch going on in Britain and Oz at around that time. So it's one like uniquely American thing. It's one of the few uniquely American things that I just love the fuck out of. Is all of that late 40s through early 60s kitsch. I prefer Art Deco, but you do see like little you do see little hints of kitsch all through my plays. So I'm trying to bring together this like little like this overlap of Art Deco and Nouveau and Empire style with these little spots of kitsch here and there. Just because it's just such a delightful thing. Like you can't look at the Kit Kat clock like the one I've got in my kitchen. I've got another one in my bathroom too. I've got the kitty cat clock. So the smaller one is in the bathroom, and that's a boy style one. And I want the two Ms. Kit Kat and Ms. Kitty Cat clocks also in black. And I want the Ms. Full size right over my telly. And I want the Ms. Kitty, the small size one. I want that over my bathroom door, but like right across, but like in front of my closet. So like on the outside of my bathroom door, right over top, so that I can see the time from my desk. So but you can't look at these and not smile. And there's the same thing with like those kitschy little Cupid dolls and shit. It's like people knew like how corny this was, but it was intentionally corny and like cranked up a bit. And it was after World War II, so there was this push for optimism to the point that it was so intentionally corny and stupid that maybe you weren't feeling necessarily optimistic, but you still had to smile at it because it's just so it's just so stupid, but in this delightful way. And that's something that I think a lot of people don't really understand. Like they look at this mid-century kitsch and they think that this was something that was like considered beautiful, and considered attractive. And it's like, no, it was kind of just like a trend, like so many things. But this was a trend that was just it was this trend for this intentional corniness, that you just couldn't help but like I said, because there was this big push for people to stay optimistic. And there was this whole notion of I don't want to say American exceptionalism because I think that means something else politically speaking, but it was this notion that that the United States can like Americans can do just about anything that they just believe in hard enough. And yeah, there have always been people who realize that that is bunk, and especially the companies that were making this shit and the artists who were designing it knew that that the optimism that you can achieve financial independence and success can only get you so far. You have to have to become famous, especially you have to have connections to do so. But but yeah, they designed this with the intent that yeah, even if somebody is really feeling sad, I want to make this so silly and corny that you can't help but smile to look at it. Um and actually the Kit Kat clocks, those started 1929, I believe. So those are actually predecessors. Oh no, 27, because they had the 90th birthday special at at Jim McDonald Apple Annie in Depot Town here in Ypsilanti. So but yeah, it was 27 because um that was That was the year just before Isaac moved in and destroyed my apartment. But yeah, they're just so the Kit Kat clocks actually preceded the whole kitsch fad. It's just like it was just something that, you know, it's just so silly and stupid and, you know, funny looking, and you know, you just can't help it. And I'm gonna turn the thing back on.
Well, my age, yeah, mostly older. I would say about 32. The oldest person I saw looked late 50s,
Oh,
and that was the crowd tonight. And that felt really, really. There was no one being obnoxious, basically. To put it bluntly, there was no one being really obnoxious. Everyone was really friendly. And there were a couple towards the end in the back room with me who were like having a little dance, and they were beautiful. They were just so beautiful. They were just such beautiful dancers, and they were there together, and they danced in the kind of style that reminded me.
Oh
of
shit! This has been going on for
starting
2
a
hours,
Nazi
so I don't think
when
anybody's really gonna watch
people were
this after the
a little
fact.
bit
But
more kind
I
of
think I
two-step
will
trad-rocky,
do another
and
sewing
it was a bit
stream
more
next week.
elegant,
So
and it wasn't
I'm gonna log off for
this
now.
was
So
very,
if you did
very
watch this far,
kind of
indeed, with
slot
me,
machine industrial
bats and
dancing, like
kisses, and I love you all
everyone
so
does
very
now.
much, and thank you
And
for watching this
infection
after